Well, one last time around for this doctor and this creator. Let's get started. Series 13, or as we are currently knowing it, Doctor Who Flux. And this is the first episode, the Halloween Apocalypse. Now, let's be blunt about a few things going into this. I didn't have particularly high expectations. I mean, look, I'll be honest. There are things that I've liked during this run of Doctor Who. There are characters I've liked, episodes I've liked, moments I've loved. But almost none of them had Chris Chibnall's direct involvement as the writer. So the fact that he is writing this entire last series is cause for some worry. That said, I have also seen Broadchurch, and while the tone and mood of Broadchurch is a completely different beast, he did kind of do better with serialization, I feel, in general, than he has with episodic, at least in terms of comparing that to his Doctor Who output up to this point. So, maybe? Look, here's the thing that makes this actually really difficult to talk about. Whether this is a decent setup episode for what's going to come, or a terrible setup episode for what's going to come, is going to largely depend on whether the setups work. Whether what the things they're setting up for pay off and are enjoyable and fun and go down well. Because if they don't, then this retroactively is going to be just the bad starting point for things that didn't work. But if it does turn out good, I'm not necessarily claiming it will, but hypothetically, if it does turn out well, then what that means is it just had a slightly awkward and but very utilitarian start. And even here, there are bits and parts and moments that I like, but you'll notice that of the options I gave this, either being terrible or serviceable, basically, I didn't put great as an option, because for something to be great, at least in my estimation, it has to be great in and of itself as a standalone piece. It's a big part of why when I talk about ranking episodes, I do two-parters as one story, because I have to take it as a collective piece, because looking at any one half by itself, usually it's not as strong. So yeah, this is not good, but it might be decent depending entirely on where we go from it. Like, let me put it this way. This reminded me more than a little of thinking back on the first season of Lost. Now, whatever you think about how Lost turned out, that first season was super exciting with all the things it was setting up and all the mysteries. It's only when you get to the ending you realize how much of it they are never going to address in a way that is not particularly satisfying, or just otherwise drop the ball or string the whole thing out longer for than it can support, that you realize, oh, all those setups were kind of nothing. That's kind of what I mean by you need to know what this is setting up for. Now, the Lost comparison is a little shaky because that was 5 seasons. This is 6 episodes total we're talking about. But that's what I mean in terms of whether or not we're going to look back at this and say, well, this was, yes, just a setup episode, but it was setting up good stuff, or if this was just a setup episode for, we don't know, and we won't until another 5 episodes go past. The main reason that I would never call this a great episode is because I could barely keep track of everything being added into the mix. And as of yet, almost none of it is connected. It's all just thrown in. And so I'm going to see if I can even remember everything here. Okay. So we've got Dan, the new companion. He needs to get introduced. We've got the entire thing with, I cannot remember the character's name or the species name, but the dog alien. I'll come back to him because I actually liked him a lot. So, like, I do want to give credit where credit's due. But we have the dog alien who kidnaps him. We have the Flux as a danger. We have this guy on an observation thing. Linder, I think was his name, who we have established while we watch the Flux completely wipe out entire populated planets. I don't know exactly why we're supposed to care about this one guy, but again, I'll come back to him. So we've got all that going on. We have this being who has been caged and imprisoned since the beginning of time, he claims to have been battling the Doctor, yet the Doctor doesn't know who he is. He has uncovered his sister, who is also bad news, I guess, and there's some woman from the future or the past or somehow connected to the Doctor who bumps into them, but then runs into a weeping angel. We don't know how the weeping angels factor into this. We know Sontarans are watching and are doing their own thing. This is a lot, and it lacks any one central thing to latch onto. The closest we get to a central pillar for this whole thing is Dan, but the only things that connect to him is the dog alien and then the Flux a little bit, because the reason the dog aliens are there is they are trying to save humanity from the Flux. So, okay, we've connected to... Oh, and there's also the stuff back in Liverpool in the 18 whatevers with the mining thing, which I had completely forgotten about, except we saw a clip of the guy at the very end of the episode. So, yeah, throw that on the mix. But so far, we have tied those three things together, but nothing else connects right now. And this might be less aggravating if it weren't for the fact that we've actually got a lot of dangling plot threads from the last few series that Chibnall has written that still haven't been tied up. And look, I'm not a continuity hound. I don't need every little single detail tied up and perfect and like, oh, there we go. That's exactly how I want it to be. No, I don't need that. You can leave a few dangling threads here or there. But the Timeless Child and the Fugitive Doctor are really massive threads, neither of which has really been tied up properly. Yes, we now know what the Timeless Child is, but so what? It has had zero practical impact on anything so far. And then, I would say the Fugitive Doctor ties into that, but while I'm not a continuity hound, there are a couple of basic fundamental questions that need to be answered about the Fugitive Doctor. The main one being, where in the hell in the Doctor's life does she fit? Because you can't just sell the idea that she's pre-Hartnell, because if she does, her TARDIS shouldn't look like a phone box. And that's actually kind of the thing. The opening scene on this, I think, illustrates a lot of what's been aggravating about some of, not all, but some of Chibnall's stuff. Because I've said before, even going back to Series 11, this looks good. I mean, like, not cinema quality. This is still BBC budget after all. But it's shot well. The effects are pretty decent for the most part. It looks good. But that opening scene feels like the embodiment of spectacle over all else. Because, you have this hologram thing and they're dangling upside down and there's an acid thing beneath them and there's these little robots that are prepared to kill them if they try and break loose. And like, okay, but none of this means anything. It's just a perilous situation that means nothing because we don't know why the Doctor is tracking after this guy who turns out to be a dog alien. We still don't really know why she was tracking after him in the first dang place. She mentioned something called the Division. We don't know what that is. Add that onto the pile of stuff, I suppose. So we don't even really know why any of this ties in, but it's this extended action-y chase scene that's fine, but there's no substance underneath that spectacle. And I will point out that it actually was a really irritating moment where like they managed to grab onto the bar so they're not hanging upside down anymore. And the little flying robot thing starts shooting at them and miss. They're like 5 feet away and these people are not moving. They are stationary for all intents and purposes. And you missed. Hey. Again, not uniquely a Chibnall problem. You can circle back to my bitching about the guards who are guarding Missy under Moffat's tenure as they just stand there as she clearly gets out of handcuffs. Anyways, it's a lot. And it's a lot to layer in that, first of all, it feels like almost too much to even be dealt with in 6 episodes by itself. And it means one of two things. Either it means Chibnall just dropped the Timeless Child and the Fugitive Doctor as threads to be pulled at all, and this is the story he's going to do now, which, if that's the case, is infuriating because Those were big deals you pulled. And while I didn't like The Timeless Child, I would like it to have a reason to exist. I would like to know what stories you were planning to get out of that move. Because otherwise, it is utterly pointless just for the sake of shaking stuff up. And while I don't have a ton of faith in Chibnall as a writer of science fiction, I did have enough faith in him as a long-time television writer to know that you don't do something that big without having it mean something. Even if that something isn't something that I like, it should still mean anything. So it's possible that's still not the case, but if it isn't, that means that's 2 more plot points that are going to be shoved in on top of everything else that's going on here. I'm having a hard time buying that this is going to get sorted in another 5 episodes for everything that was introduced. I did say there were some things that I like. I genuinely love the dog alien. I love the idea of this alien that is threatening and has a dangerous weapon and has been setting deadly traps, and it's adorable. And I think having it be a dog has that really work, because other times there have been adorable aliens, it hasn't worked for me. Arguably, the Slitheen are adorable. Maybe that might be stretching it, but like the Pating was kind of adorable. It looked like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, but it didn't work, the fact that it was adorable. So I think having it be a dog actually kind of works with that, and it is adorable. And I liked the interactions. The notion of the species bonded, or whatever it is, that for every one human, there's one of these, and they're a protector, like, it doesn't hold up continuity-wise to anything in the past, like, so all the other times that humanity's been in danger, you just didn't turn up. There is actually a feasible explanation of that, because they know the flux is coming, and pretty much every other time that humanity has almost been completely wiped out, it's been something that people were not expecting to happen. So maybe they didn't have the time to, do what they're doing this time. So, and like, that's enough of an explanation for me to roll with it. Because again, it's such a cute idea. This extrapolation of man's best friend to the extent of this highly evolved species that basically look like they were evolved from dogs, still having that instinct to protect humanity. Is that a silly idea? Yes, it's a silly idea. Doctor Who is allowed to be silly. That's fine. I did enjoy that. I kind of like Dan. He's a nice guy. He's obviously out of his depth, but I like the degree to which I like that. He doesn't just sit there and go, this can't be happening. He's like, okay, well, clearly this is happening, so what does that mean? And that he's able to, like, get under the dog alien skin that way. And you're like, well, no, I know you won't kill me because you went through all this trouble to kidnap me. If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it back there. So I know you're not gonna, which is a very logical thing. And it's something that only someone who has barreled past the I can't believe this is happening phase can think out. And so I like that about him. And he's just in general an affable guy. So I'm liking him just fine so far. I kind of liked the little bit of sort of regional animosity between him and Yaz. That was kind of fun. That was kind of cute. I don't know what to think about too much else of what's going on here. I don't know what to think about this woman with the weeping angel. I don't know what to think about these weird, somewhat crystalline, like skeletal nose looking things. I don't know what's going on there. So I don't know what to, like, obviously a villain, but like, okay, is the Flux as an event itself not enough? Do we need a villain personified as well? I mean, they'll probably get tied together at some point. But again, that's the thing. So many things are unconnected. It's just a ton of stuff that happens in the same space. And that is why I didn't say that this being great is an option, because it's not. Even if everything smooths out after this is still a really clunky start. Just cramming in everything right from the get-go before it has any meaning. I mean, at bare minimum, have one of these show up later. Like the freaking mining thing. Nothing happens with that yet. Save the introduction of that entire idea to an episode where something happens with it. Just a thought. It's messy. It is undisciplined. It is worrying. I'll come back to that word. I want this to get better. I want it to be good. I want this era to end on a high note. But I don't know. This is not a great start. It's not a start that's impossible to recover from. Oh, I said I was going to come back to Linder, the guy on the ship. He was nice. Like, the bit of personality we got from him, doing his duty, saying all these things, the things are still normal, all this, and, thank you for having me out here to have this view, and then to let you know, as I sign off every time, you can all go to hell. I'm like, okay, all right. He's a little bit torn and ambivalent about his situation. I kind of like him. So here's what I will give, that this does better than actually a fair amount of stuff that has gone on in Chibnall's era. It's done a pretty succinct job of introducing some of the new characters, because a lot of the one-off or short-lived characters really just didn't land at all. And I felt like I had no idea who those people were. I'm not sure I could give you a full character breakdown of someone like Linder or Dan, but I feel like I got my head wrapped around them. And how much you want to chalk that up to the writing and how much you want to chalk that up to the actors being able to elevate the writing, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I am interested to see those characters show up again, and that's kind of all I've got. It's interesting to see the older Sontaran design again. I would say it'll be interesting to see why it's the older Sontaran design instead of the newer one. I actually don't have a ton of faith that we're going to get a reason why. It might just be a thing that's being done because. Doctor Who Flux, the Halloween apocalypse. It just seems like such unnecessary stake raising. It's just layer on layer on layer on layer on problem on problem on problem. It's like, just give me one problem and do a deep dive into that and make me care. This is too much. We'll see if it evens out next time. Fingers crossed. Whatever your thoughts are on this, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's the usual stuff like share, subscribe. I have a Patreon. You can support what I do. And, I don't know, help me get newer cosplay stuff. We're going to have a new Doctor in a couple years. I'm going to have to get a new cosplay. Help me out. That'd be great. But don't sweat it if you're unable to. The like, share, subscribe, they help me out as well. But no big pressure on that either. Because at the end of the day, you are the council and I am just running the meeting. So until next time, this council is adjourned. And look at you, sticking around through the credits. I appreciate that. Well, you know what? You're about to be treated to a whole ton of names going by on the screen, but there's a few of them that I want to give special attention to. My special thanks to Bookworm, Jared Boyce, MJ, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Kaylin Schwartz, Edelin, Hannah Acker, Robin Moore, Ross Schultz, and Shayla Gourlay. If you want to hear me mispronounce your name, check out the reward tiers on the Patreon. But for right now, thanks so much.